Welcome to the Bubba Continuum. I think it's August the 16th. It's a Sunday, whatever that turns out to be. I'm just here today to talk about a couple of rifles that I got. And the reason I'm talking about this is that I annoyed somebody. I put up a video where I complained about this gun here. And this is a Marlin 60. It's not an old one. I think it's from 2018, something like that. And this is a Savage A22. Similar vintage. I don't know if it's 2018 or 2019, but I talked about this gun in an earlier video and I complained about it. And I basically said it was a piece of junk and overrated. And I said this Savage A22 was a much better gun and a better investment considering the cost of the two guns. So someone got annoyed with me about that and said I was not being objective and so forth. And I thought I should try to defend my stance on this. I'm not trying to provoke anybody, but I just want to tell you why I feel this way. And I thought it'd be good if I had both guns sitting here in front of you. First of all, I want to say something about the mental health aspect of getting really attached to a brand name. Okay? Grown people shouldn't be upset when other people say they don't like things they bought because they came from certain manufacturers. If you have a Chevy truck and I have a Dodge, which is of course the greatest kind of truck imaginable, and I say something bad about your awful, disgusting Chevy truck, which is feeble and shameful for a man to own, you shouldn't take that personally because you didn't make the truck, you didn't give birth to it, it's not your child, it's an object that you bought. You shouldn't be that wrapped up in it. And the way I feel about this is you can say whatever you want about whatever I own, and I don't care. You can say Savage rifles are garbage and nobody should, only pedophiles own them. Whatever you want to do, go ahead. I don't care. I'm not going to take that personally. You want to make fun of my truck? You want to make fun of the knife I carry, the brand of cheese that I put on my pizza, the pants that I wear. Go ahead, I don't care. What do I care what you think about it? So you really need to get over that. If this is something that bothers you, I'll tell you what, I really annoyed some people on a gun forum recently because I said Lee reloading dies. I complained about Lee reloading dies because they don't fit on Hornady lock and load AP progressive presses, ammunition presses. And people got really upset with me about this. And what I said is 100% true. Lee dies have threads. All dies have threads on them, so they can go into the platforms on the on reloading presses. Well, the threads on Lee dies are too short. At least on the type of Lee dies that I bought Lee carbide dies for 9mm. I said to myself, I got all these Hornady dies. Why don't I stop being so narrow-minded? I'll try something else and see if it's any good. And I saw carbide. I saw Lee carbide. And I thought, boy, I like carbide because carbide lasts forever and you shouldn't have to lubricate it and this and that. So I'm going to try carbide. And I bought some Lee carbide dies and they were too short to go on my press. I mean, you can do it, but maybe I should just show you. Let's see if I can get this out of here. Okay, here's a die from a Hornady press. This is an example of what a die is like. All right, this die has thread. This is not part of the die. This thing here, this is a bushing that goes into the press. It's a quick release bushing. You can just turn it like that and pull your die out, which is great. So there's threads here and inside this, the thread into this thing. And up here, this part up here with the knurling on it, that's a locking ring, and you tighten this set screw here and it kind of bonds these things together and makes them a unit so nothing moves around while you're making ammunition. And on the Lees, you would have to screw this in. See these threads that are exposed here? Those would be totally hidden down inside the ring. And what you end up with is a situation where you only got a couple of threads engaged in the locking ring, and it's just not good. It's stupid. And people have complained that their threads break off inside their locking rings, and the Lee locking rings are not very good either, in my opinion, because I wish I had one in my hand right now. It doesn't have this. It's not a nice steel ring with a nice set screw in it. It's just a circular ring with a bunch of vertical slots cut in it. And you have to turn it by hand, and it works off friction. It doesn't have a little screw like this. So they put some kind of glop on it that's like tar, and it makes it very hard to turn. And the slots are very sharp, and they cut into your fingers, and it's just unpleasant to use. It's a stupid design. Well, the way to make it work, if you're determined to make this work on a Hornady press, you take the locking ring and you put it down on this side of the die, which is underneath the loading press, the reloading press. Well, the problem with that is now you can no longer remove this by twisting it and pulling it out. In order to take this thing off the reloading press, you've got to remove the locking ring, because it's down here acting like a nut holding it on the press. So every time you want to move it, which is something you commonly have to do when you make ammunition, you got to unscrew it, which hurts your fingers because it's so hard to turn and it's so stupidly designed. And my understanding is that the metal is not very good either, that it's cast or it's aluminum or something. I don't know about that. Maybe I shouldn't say that. You can check for yourself. But the point I'm trying to make is maybe Lee dies are wonderful if you use them on a Lee press. And I complained about using them on Hornady press, which was a horrible thing to do. It was just a miserable experience. I ended up buying Hornady dies, and this is one of them, to replace the set of Lee dies that I bought, and everything just worked out perfectly. I mean, it was so easy, it was great, it was a breeze. And so I'm going to put the Lee dies on eBay or throw them out in the street or something. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, people got mad at me. People who like Lee products got mad because they just like Lee products, and anyone who criticizes them, it's like saying they have an ugly baby. You know, as far as I know, no one's ever given birth to a Lee die. I certainly hope not. Sounds like something that happens in prison after a visit. But anyway, that's an example of brand loyalty and how it leads to ignorant behavior. So I hope you're not one of these people who's obsessed with your brand and you think your brand of whatever has to be better than everybody else's. And with that in mind, I'll just say Marlin makes a pretty crummy 22 in my opinion. And I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to give you nice objective reasons for this, okay? So here's your Marlin 60. Where do I start with? Okay, the trigger. This is not the original trigger. The original trigger was a piece of plastic. This is a trigger from the M Carbo company, and it's a vast improvement over the original trigger, which was creepy and nasty and just bad. And you know, a plastic trigger is kind of an insult to begin with. I hate to say that because I've got a Remington nylon 66 rifle, my first gun from 1972 or 73. And it's a neat gun. It's great for what it is, and it has a plastic trigger. So you know, you can shoot rabbits or whatever with a plastic trigger. It's not like it's not gonna function. It's not like it's gonna fall off. It'll work perfectly. It may last 50 years, but it's the only reason for putting one on a gun. The only reason is to save money. It's not like it improves the gun in some way. So Marlin stuck a plastic trigger on this gun, and it was a bad trigger. It was not adjustable. It had a crummy trigger pull, and I just didn't like it. And if you want proof that Marlin triggers are bad, Marlin 60 triggers are bad, all you got to do is go on the internet and Google Marlin 60 trigger, and you'll find out that a lot of people think they're bad. And the way to fix this, I was only able to find 2 ways to fix this. And the first, I talked about this in the earlier video, and there's a guy who calls himself Arrow Dodger, and that's his internet forum handle. And he's a machinist of some sort, and he makes his own trigger that he sells, and I think it's 125 bucks. I'm not too sure. Supposedly a wonderful trigger. Everybody says it's wonderful, fantastic, dynamite trigger. The problem is you got to find this guy, and I tried to contact him by email. I contacted him over Facebook. You know, I believe I tried to reach him on the forum at rimfirecentral.com before I got banned for complaining about him. Anyway, this guy would never get back to me, and people said, "Oh, why don't you call him and why don't you do that?" I was like, you know, I'm not going to chase somebody so I can give him my money. That's totally unprofessional. You know, it makes you mad if you're like Arrow Dodger's nephew or something. Well, sorry, but if you can't return a phone call, that's unprofessional. Well, I shouldn't say phone call because I didn't call him. But if you can't return an email, you can't return a Facebook message, you can't return a forum message, that's unprofessional. So it's 125 bucks, which is pretty crazy considering the gun is like 250. And apparently you just got to be really lucky to get a hold of this guy. So that everybody says that's the best trigger, and I wouldn't know because I couldn't get one. So I got what people say is the second best trigger, and this is from a company called M Carbo, and they sell you the kit, and you stick it in there yourself. It's a nice aluminum trigger with a flat. This part of the trigger is actually called a shoe. The part of the trigger you can see, believe that or not. So it's got a nice flat trigger shoe, which is supposed to be good for a consistent trigger pull, and it's got it's not. You know, it's not the best trigger on the face of the earth, but it's worlds ahead of the original one. And I really like the M Carbo company. They not only do they sell good stuff, but they put videos up on the internet and they show you how to install it step by step. So I took this gun apart, stuck the trigger in. Now it's a good trigger. It's not a phenomenal trigger, it's a good trigger. But you got to say to yourself, well, I spent what, like 180 bucks for the gun and 75 for the trigger, so I'm up around 255 bucks now before I could even shoot it and get any kind of accuracy. Well, here's the A22. What does the A22 have? It has a Savage A22, and I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a little, trigger safety thing on it to make it, I guess that's to make it safe because it lightens the trigger pull so much. You can adjust this thing down to, I don't know what they claim, but I would guess it's probably like 3 pounds or 3.5 pounds, which is not bad. You can also do what I did. I have a different spring in here, and I took it down, truthfully, I took it down too far, but it's got an adjustment on it, and it comes with a tool so you can adjust it, and you can make it tighter or you can make it looser. It's just a wonderful, wonderful trigger. When the A22 came out, everybody raved about it, and on a gun this inexpensive, I think this is like a $250 gun. There's really nothing to complain about. It's just wonderful, and it comes with the gun, and you don't have to chase down Mr. Arrow Dodger. So trigger stinks, trigger is great. Great trigger, bad trigger, okay? So if you just want to get from here, not to where this trigger is, because you won't get a trigger as good, but if you want to get from here to a trigger that's pretty good, 75 bucks, and then you're pretty much spending what you would have spent on this gun already, okay? What else? This gun has a shorter sight radius. I don't know if you can't, I'm not going to sit here and measure it for you, but trust me, the distance from here to here is greater than the distance from here to here. And this is a crummy sight. I forget what they call these things, staghorn or antler or something related to deer. You can look it up. Anyway, it's just a piece of crummy sheet metal, I guess tack welded to the barrel, and it has no horizontal adjustment whatsoever, and it's got a little bit of vertical adjustment, and that's it. It's too close to the front of the gun. Well, the Savage has it's not the most expensive, not the fanciest sight on earth, but it's got a sight that's adjustable vertically and horizontally without special tools. Hello, obvious. Why couldn't Marlin do that? And I should quit calling him Marlin, because Marlin is dead. It's really Remington. This is Remington, and Remington is perpetually bankrupt. So who knows if you can even get warranty work done on these things anymore. So short sight radius, longer sight radius, bad sight, okay sight, pretty good sight. This thing comes with a little chintzy dovetail on top for mounting a scope. Personally, I'm not a big fan of dovetails. That's like a way of confessing that you're working with an inferior class of firearms. Here's what we got on the Savage. Now, I'll be honest with you, I can't remember whether these things came with it or not. I assume they did. These are, 2 Weaver platforms, and you can slap a scope on there, and it'll be like a real gun. This is the dust cover, and it came from here, and I took it off temporarily. So if you're wondering why it looks like that, it doesn't always look that way. So, all right, where are we at now? Sling studs. You see, we got a sling stud here, and we got a sling stud over here. Nice that Marlin puts those in there, right? Well, it would be if they did that, but they don't. This thing, Savage, sling stud here, sling stud down there, comes with the gun. You don't have to worry about it. Marlin, you got to pay for them. So it's like 10 bucks. And then guess what? You can't put a sling stud in this stock unless you modify it. Now somebody sells this crummy thing where you put like a ring around your barrel, and there's a sling stud attached to that. Well, do you really want to screw stuff to your barrel? I mean, it's just bad practice. You don't want things hanging off your barrel. You want as few things to touch your barrel as possible. And I don't know for sure. I haven't checked, but this is probably a free floating barrel. I don't know if that makes any difference with a round as inaccurate as a 22, but you don't have to glue your sling stud to the barrel. Is what I'm trying to tell you. This thing here, you say to yourself, well, I'll just screw in a sling stud and that'll be fine. It'll only cost me 10 bucks, making it more expensive than the Savage, including the trigger. But you can't do that because this thing has a tube magazine. The tube magazine takes up so much room in here that there's very little wood in here. There's very little wood. So the only way to make this thing work is to have some kind of a nut on the inside of it, so you're, you know, squeezing the wood. If you put a screw in there that goes through the wood, it's going to rip out sooner or later. You're going to pick up your gun one day and it's going to fall off and the threads will be stripped and there'll be a big splinter there. You know, it'll be nasty. So let me see if I can show you what I did. I hope I can get this thing to come apart. There we go. I don't know if you can see this. So that's the work that yours truly did. I had to buy this special aftermarket stud, and then because there was no stud on earth that's made to fit this thing, I had to file this down. I had to take the belt grinder and grind the screw down, and I had to put Loctite on it and all this other nonsense. I didn't have a Forstner bit the correct size to make this hole, so I had to go out and buy a 3/8 inch Forstner bit and cut this hole for this nut to sit in. So now it's fantastic. I mean, I won't lie. Now it's wonderful. It's strong. It looks good. It's where it's supposed to be. Hooray for me. I'm great. This one down here, you think, well, you know, I understand why they can't put a sling stud in the front of the gun, but at least they put one in the back, right? No, they didn't put one in the back. They could have done that, chose not to. So I had to do this. I had to drill this hole and stick it in there, which is nerve-wracking, especially because I'm going to give them credit. This is a really nice looking stock. I don't know if it shows up on camera, but it's got these little tiger stripes in it. And it really is beautiful, considering the fact that it's some kind of cheap, you know, second-grade wood. It's really amazing that it came out so nice. So, given that it was so nice, I didn't want to gouge it up by drilling a crummy hole. Okay, so the sling stud problem, that's stupid. You have to spend money on another stud, and then you have to find a way to install it. And this is probably the only Marlin 60 in the entire world that has a sling stud that's installed properly. I don't know if anybody else has even tried to do this. Okay, so where are we now? The gun itself, not very impressive. It's some kind of cheap, cheesy, you know, sheet metal. It's barely even worthy of being called a receiver. And it's got this thing in it, this weird pot metal part. I don't understand it. Everything, there's all this steel here, and I think this over here is aluminum. So what is this stuff? It looks like it's cast zinc or something similar to that. Why? I mean, why would you do that? And another problem with it is, when you buy these things, you can't shoot hyper ammunition. Hyper ammunition is like stingers. It's like things that go, I don't know, 1,400 feet per second instead of whatever it is. What is it, 1,250, something like that is high velocity. So I don't know how fast stingers go, but it's somewhat faster than that. And you can't shoot them in this gun, and which is really unfortunate, because you should have a giant label on the gun that says, don't do this, whatever you do, don't do this, because it'll screw up your gun, and they don't have that. And they're selling these things, you know, in the modern age when hyper ammunition is everywhere and people reasonably expect their guns to be able to shoot it. So it's just a dumb idea. Well, when I bought this M Carbo trigger, I also bought some stuff to fix it so they could shoot hyper ammunition. So more money to make this gun sort of approach the quality of the Savage. Okay, so you know, kind of a crummy looking receiver. Has to be modified and able to work with hyper ammunition. Not good. Doesn't make any sense. And a lot of people say, oh, I shoot my gun with hyper ammunition all the time. It hasn't blown up yet. Well, the key word there is yet. Sooner or later, you may have a problem. And there's no excuse for it. Everybody else has guns that can shoot hyper ammunition. Why not Marlin? What possible excuse could they have? So let's take a look at this thing. Now, I admit there's a lot of plastic in here, but if you're a Glock owner, you know plastic isn't what it used to be. So it's nice, it's heavy, it's made well, it's easy to work on. There's my trigger spring. I think that's the trigger spring that I installed. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm not too sure. I don't remember. But it's just very nice. It's nicely made. This stuff here is all machined. You know, it's not some piece of junk that somebody hammered. That, you know, like they took an old Weber kettle and cut this piece out and beat it with a hammer until it was flat. No, I mean it's a nice machined piece of what I think is steel. I'm not too sure, but whatever it is, look at that. I mean that's nice and sturdy. And the other thing is, it's got a barrel that threads in. I mean, a real barrel that threads in. Hello? You can change this barrel. I don't know how the Marlin barrel is held in. Let's see. Glue, I don't know. Pinned in or whatever. I mean, what can I tell you? So this thing is, you know, not that user friendly to deal with, as far as I know. So I'm trying to think, is there anything else you need to know about these things that demonstrates that this one's totally inferior? I don't know. I guess that's it. So I'm not just imagining things. When I say that, people said, "Oh, you don't like, you're criticizing Marlins because you just don't like Marlin." No, I'm not like that. If Marlin makes something good, I don't care who makes it. I'll buy it and I'll tell people about it. Who cares? My name's not Marlin. I have really legitimate reasons for criticizing this thing. I just knocked the camera. Oh well. So another thing you need to know about is quality control. Now, people complain about the quality control on Marlin guns. And don't believe me, go on Google and find out. And this gun is a great example. This is my second Marlin 60. The first one I bought, I went to Gander Outdoors before Marcus Lemonis killed it. And I complained to him because I bought this thing and it was shooting literally like 4-inch groups at 50 feet. And they sent it off to Marlin and they didn't ever send it back. This is not the same gun I sent them. Not only did they agree that I was right, the gun that I sent them was so screwed up, they didn't even try to fix it. I had to go through a second background check because this gun has a different serial number. If you do that, if you send a gun in for warranty work and they send you a different part that's considered a firearm and it has a different serial number, you got to do a separate background check. So quality control is an issue. And so they sent me this thing back and say, "Oh, well, they fixed your problem. Good for Marlin. What a great stand-up company. Good for Remington, I should say." Well, here's the thing. After they sent it back, I started shooting it and the tube fell off, the magazine tube. Okay, I was shooting one day. I noticed I shot and then it wouldn't fire again, and I kind of turned it around on my hands to look at it, and I saw that the magazine tube was loose. So you probably, I don't know how well you can see it on camera, but there's a little pin right here that goes through this part, and that is what makes everything work up here. And these pins are not engineered, they're not made very well. So if you're not lucky, you can get one that just falls out. And that's what happened to me. And of course it fell out in the pasture, so good luck finding that. So I just gave up on it. And I put this thing aside for months or maybe a year, I don't even remember, and just gave up on it. I thought, man, I really don't want to go through the aggravation of shipping this thing back again. And finally what I did was I said, I'm not going to send it back. I went to Numrich, Numrich, on the internet, and it's a wonderful, wonderful site. They ship things quick, they ship things fast, cheap, well, reasonably priced, and they have a huge assortment of firearms parts, and it's just a great way to bypass the warranty problem. You don't have to ship your stuff off to Uzbekistan or wherever it is that their facility is. So I bought myself a new ring, and I bought myself a new pin, and stuck this thing in here, and I probably Loctited that in there because I'm not stupid. I'm not going to let it do that to me twice. So anyway, now it works. I should also add that I put this sight on here, and this is a peep sight because I like peep sights, and this thing here is idiotic. So now I've got a nice long sight radius, and I've got a peep sight which is adjustable horizontally and vertically. And I'll tell you the thing that I hate to admit. If I've made you mad because you love Marlin, I'm going to say something this is going to be your vindication. I hate to say this, but I really like this gun now. Okay, now I've got a gun with a good, but not great, a good trigger. I've got a gun with a very nice sight. I've got a gun with a magazine tube that's not going to fall off. It can shoot hyper ammunition. Not that I want to, but it can. It can shoot hyper ammunition. It's got a very nice attachment for the sling stud. And as I said before, they gave me this really beautiful stock, which I don't even understand. Maybe they keep a bunch of really nice stocks on hand so that when they send out a total lemon, they can send you out a pretty gun and make you feel better. I don't know if that's how it works, but it's really neat, and it feels good in your hand. It's light, very pleasant gun. So now I like it. But what have I got in it? What did I pay for this thing? Like 180 bucks for the gun and 75 for the trigger and all that junk. And then I had to spend, I don't know, 15 bucks on numberage parts. And to get decent sights, I had to spend, I think these things are 40 bucks. I'm not sure. So this is like, you know, what, a $300 gun, $350 gun. The Savage, let's see, what have I put in it? A $5 spring. Okay? That's the difference. So, expensive gun, which is pretty good, and less expensive gun, which is better. So it's really that simple. So if you like the Marlin 60, well, you know, you're wrong and you're a bad person, but that's between you and your conscience. Objectively, the Savage is a better gun and a better value, and it was made by a company that is currently in business, not in bankruptcy court, as far as I know. Although, given the poor management of gun companies, that could be, you know, that was the situation a couple of days ago. Now, for all I know, it's in receivership. It amazes me that gun companies can lose money during a buying panic. That's just astounding. Smith & Wesson's in trouble. Remington's in trouble. People are buying their guns like crazy, and they're still having problems. All right, I guess that's all I got to say. My advice is do not buy a Marlin 60 unless you really like playing with guns and fixing them. And if you want something that's trouble-free, that's really a surprising value for what you pay, pick up one of these Savages. It's a big boy gun. It's a real gun for whatever it was, 250 bucks. So that's it. I'm out.